The original Halo trilogy is legendary and was a defining series of the 2000s. The landscape of the FPS genre was forever changed by the release of Halo Combat Evolved. Bungie did a great job crafting a world and a set of gameplay mechanics that would inspire gamers for generations to come. Their time with the series was at an end, and a new studio, 343 Industries, was handed the reins of this storied franchise. The studio is not new to the series, as they assisted with Halo Reach, and were given full control starting with Halo 4. Fourth entries are a tricky thing. People tend to like the 3-act structure of a trilogy, making a fourth entry risk feeling that the series is retreading old grounds since the original conflict is resolved, or they try to change too much, which could cause the series to lose the identity it once had. Or the fourth could just suck. Not to say all trilogies are great by default, and there have been times between entries massive changes were made that angered fans. There was a 5-year gap between Halo 3 and 4, which may not sound like a lot, but things can change fast, especially in gaming. One moment you're at the top of the mountain, and the next you're forgotten. Halo 4 is a flawed but good title that could have been great. It introduces new mechanics and enemies, but keeps a lot that worked well for the series. Fans will notice changes instantly, with Chief getting a makeover, cutscenes getting a massive boost in presentation, and Cortana getting some upgrades. I enjoy quite a bit of the presentation. I think Chief's new armor looks solid. I prefer his old design, but I still like this new one. Looking through the visor is a nice detail to fully immerse yourself in the role as Master Chief. And this is my favorite Cortana look. Don't ask why, you already know the answer. There are some levels like the forest that showcase the beauty of this entry. It's dense and atmospheric, with the Prometheans working excellently in this environment, as their movement can create an uneasy feeling. The cutscenes have the most noticeable improvements. The first scene with Dr. Halsey showcases a new high in the series when it comes to capturing emotions visually. In game, the character models are the most high fidelity they've ever been. But there's a bit of an uncanny valley feeling with them during gameplay. Just how they talk to you looks off, like they don't fully interact with you, just at you. Cutscenes don't have this issue since they have more control of all aspects of interactions. Halo 4 was from the era when you can see major differences in visual quality between gameplay and cutscenes. You still see that occasionally now, but it was so widely present in previous generations. My main issues in the presentation lie with the art direction. From the enemies to the weapons, there are aspects about them I think are just wrong. To start off positively, I like the Prometheans. Look at the knights and their little arms. How can you not love them? I think their designs are solid. Nothing spectacular, but nothing bad either. Just solid, but nothing as iconic as the Covenant or the Flood. The ways Prometheans attack and move work well to distinguish them from the Covenant. Crawlers are vicious little guys that can attack from anywhere, climbing along walls, shooting from any angle, or biting you up close, which makes them a little more interesting than a grunt or jackal, which only has a medium to long range they like to attack from. At close range, they typically will run away, or if it's a grunt, they will just go for broke and try to blow you and themselves up. I do find it hilarious that in this game one poor bastard gets mauled to death by a jackal. It is the only time I have ever seen it. Just get sniped like a normal person, you idiot. Back to the robots. Another thing I enjoy is their death animations. Knights disintegrate while the others explode into pieces. Shooting mechanical enemies doesn't always feel good because they don't react in the same way as organic enemies, but I think those little additions are nice touches that give combat a bit of visual flair. Their weapons are neat. I like the initial animations they do when you first acquire them. You see all the little pieces form together into the gun. It's a nice touch. Something that would have made the Prometheans look better is if they stayed blue. because blue is objectively the best color. Off to the bigger problems. First up, the Covenant. They look weird. Grunts look like Alabama locusts, and jackals are scientifically accurate velociraptors. The elites look more like Yachua in a bad way though. Hunters look the best because they've barely changed. Listen, I know the grunts could have been worse. It could have been so much worse, but that doesn't mean I have to like this. Next are the weapons, and in particular the UNSC weapons. The battle rifle sounds horrible. It doesn't have an impactful sound. It's like a card slapping against a table. I don't know how to accurately portray it because it just doesn't sound like a gun should. The guns themselves have an almost cartoonish look to them, like they look like really awesome Nerf guns instead of the horrifying firearms they are. Mechanics are one thing, but visual and sound design have a massive impact on the feeling of combat. If combat looks and sounds great, players feel that. It gives the combat character, with the reverse being true as well. I have some issues with the levels, mainly the interior ones. All the Forerunner interiors have a similar look to them, and the layout is the only thing that distinguishes them. I think the outside levels do a much better job of standing out visually. You can notice oddities with the skyboxes, but I still prefer them instead of a constant blue and gray color scheme. Overall, I think the devs valued higher fidelity over better art direction. It works well in the cutscenes and makes Cortana even hotter, but it has the side effect that guns, levels, and enemies don't look or sound as strong as they should. I have spent quite a bit of time discussing the mechanics of the Halo series before. I have 5 Halo videos so far, so I'll try not to repeat myself too much about the basics, and more discuss what Halo 4 does differently. This entry is built off similar ideas from Reach, so the bigger and smaller changes Reach made to the mechanics are present here. Armor abilities are back, and so is Reach's best mechanic, Assassinations! Sprinting is no longer tied to an ability, which I like. Another big thing 4 got from Reach was set pieces, which I will discuss later. Movement feels solid with sprinting adding more mobility. A lot of what I have said about abilities in regards to Reach applies here. Halo 4 doesn't have all the same abilities as Reach, with about an equal amount gained as lost, with some I actively avoid. The thrusters temporarily send you into third person and have an awful arc when in the air. They suck, and the devs think they suck too, because I only found one place in the entire campaign that has it available. General gunplay has gotten a few tweaks, with the big one being that you are no longer knocked out of zoom after taking damage. This might sound like a small change, but it can have an impact on how players interact with the combat. The Halo games always have precise hip firing compared to other more realistic shooters. Some games feel like you're constantly playing with the gun up your nose because not doing so means you can't hit shit. In Halo, players do not need to zoom in order to hit enemies at a medium or even long distance. Not every gun even has a zoom to begin with. Being knocked out of zoom was a penalty which forced players to reassess how they approach an encounter. It was a unique penalty that keeps players engaging in combat mostly in a hip firing mode. I would still use zoom across the titles, but it's something I would use carefully. There are more precision guns now than ever, which might be why they decided to change this. Luckily there are ways the game can still incentivize hip firing, because your situational awareness is lowered and you cannot see your motion tracker while zooming. I think the old system was better as zoom was a temporary tool and players always knew that. Since we are on the topic of guns, new enemies also means new guns. I like the Promethean weapons, with the light rifle being my favorite. Overall, the Promethean weapons are powerful, with the exception being the pulse grenades. I enjoy how the light rifle is burst or single shot depending on if you're zooming or not. This series has a weird tradition where the best weapon to defeat an enemy with is their own. The Covenant doesn't bring much new outside of the Storm Rifle, which feels worse to shoot than the Plasma Rifle. Everything else works about the same as always. There are two new toys the UNSC brought, the Mantis, a bipedal tank which could have been in a Metal Gear Solid game, and the Saw, a massive machine gun. Both are amazing, no notes. Now to the biggest change to combat, the enemies. Prometheans come in three forms: large knights, similar to the elites with their shields and being the commanders. Crawlers that can climb along walls, are fast but weak. Watchers, which will help the others by shielding them and throwing your grenades back at you. There are aspects of the Prometheans that irritate me. Knights like teleporting around the battlefield, mostly in order to escape. Corvo Atano and Nightcrawler are the only people allowed to teleport, while everyone else can just walk. And then there's the Watchers. The role the Watchers play is important in the Promethean ranks. They play more of a supporting role, which is uncommon as all other enemies only provide defense for themselves, never someone else. This has Prometheans feel like a well-structured unit where each member has a unique role, with those roles playing off each other. But holy god, flying enemies are awful. Nearly everyone hates flying enemies, but they persist, like mosquitoes. The Prometheans are a solid addition, and hot take alert, I prefer the Prometheans to the Flood. The Flood are stressful and annoying. Stay gone, you horrifying bastards. Overall, fights with these newbies are enjoyable. Their unique roles and abilities help to distinguish them from the Covenant, who reverted to their original Combat Evolved formation, so elites, jackals, grunts, and hunters. Viewing this game retrospectively, I wish they introduced the Banished here. I like fighting against the brutes, and story-wise, it seems more logical that Fanatical Force would be led by them. No big changes in how the Covenant play, just how they look. The biggest issue I have with combat is how the enemies are used. At the beginning, the Covenant and Prometheans fight against each other, which gives a fun triangular battle between the UNSC, the Covenant, and the Prometheans, where everyone is fighting everyone. I found the earlier battles more engaging because of this. Shortly into the story, the Covenant starts taking orders from the Prometheans, which causes them to become one faction. Therefore, they lose the three-way battles, but also, they don't do anything interesting with this team up. Most of the time going forwards from here, the battles are typically just Covenant or just Prometheans, with very little overlap. There are times you deal with both, but it's quickly to transition between fighting one to fighting the other. Both sides only have 3 or so main enemies, so you spend a lot of time fighting the same formations. Also, there are no boss fights here to mix up combat. These encounters, while enjoyable, could have been improved. If you want the Covenant and Prometheans to become a larger singular faction, use them as one faction and find fun combinations to challenge the player. Either do that or do the three-way battles. You can see in the sequel they picked the latter. Combat is fun, I want to make that clear. It's just disappointing seeing ways it could have been better. They established a solid foundation, but demolished that foundation instead of building it up more. Another missed opportunity lies with the level design. As I've said earlier, Halo 4 has some similarities in design to Reach. There are several set pieces, which are fun, with my favorite being the Ghost section. It is more style than substance, but I like its style, what can I say? The flying sections feel like asset swapped versions of levels from Reach, but even shorter. The Flying Pelican section is tiny in comparison to the version from Reach. You only fly to 3 places and deal with a few phantoms. No banshees or any Promethean turrets or vehicles, which has this level feeling undercooked. In Reach, they had a few different objectives for the player to do, which change on each playthrough. You could defend a transport or deal with a few turrets. In 4, it's just 1, 2, 3, done. The interior sections of both levels are pretty mid, but the different objectives gives Reach a clear edge. It's the difference between using the vehicle as a means of transportation versus as a unique, temporary mechanic. The spaceship section is fun even though I am a terrible pilot. Again, I think Reach did it better by giving more challenges for the player to overcome. You only fight against a few Promethean auto-turrets because again, they don't mix the enemies together when it makes sense. Must have been for technical reasons, cause why couldn't there have been some Banshees here as well? I might have been too harsh on Reach, not for all the padding, but definitely didn't give it enough flowers for their set pieces. Outside of the set pieces, levels are enjoyable. They flow well with some fun power trip moments. This franchise has a solid formula to build its levels from. Mix up the enemy formations, mix up the range, add some vehicle sections once in a while, and boom, you have a solid Halo campaign. And even with its faults, Halo 4 is a solid campaign. It uses tried and true methods established by the series without deviating too much. Except for the story, which is where they have taken some massive risk. Spoilers ahead. I'll try not to repeat the story beat for beat, but will try to make sure you are not lost either. You begin with Chief and Cortana still wandering around in space. Cortana wakes up Chief and they are boarded by a rogue Covenant force and are taken into a Promethean planet. The main conflict is twofold. You have a personal conflict involving my love Cortana experiencing rampancy, a condition that AI constructs experience after a certain amount of time, which slowly kills them by essentially overthinking themselves to death. Then there's the Didact, and the Prometheans. The Didact is a forerunner Promethean trapped on this planet. Chief and Cortana are tricked into releasing him while simultaneously getting a nearby UNSC freighter trapped on the planet as well. The conflict involving the Didact is what guides their actions during the story. Cortana's rampancy is an issue, but they never are able to take steps to resolve it. Cortana mentions getting back to Dr. Halsey could help, but they are never able to. The Didact dominates all their time and effort as he wants to go to war with humanity. I think they have this to showcase the character traits of John. He is very devoted to protecting humanity against all threats, even when faced with great personal risk. He and Cortana have a strong bond, which is showcased throughout the trilogy, but here's where they try to flesh it out the most. During any mission downtime, they will chat and John will try his best to reassure Cortana, to little avail.
Blast it!
It's okay.
How? How is this okay? How is putting you at risk because I can't hold it together okay?
Most of the time her rampancy is used to create personal issues, like Cortana getting angry at Officer Del Rio, aka the worst character in the game. Cortana's emotional state may fluctuate, but she remained capable of performing all her usual tasks even if she would occasionally lose focus. There is good stuff about the conflict with the Didact, although I think they could have gone further with it. There's a great scene near the end of the game where the Didact eviscerates everyone in a UNSC research facility. I like this so much because it legitimizes him as a threat. Most of the time in the story, he doesn't showcase why he's a threat to all of humanity. Yes, he has an army, yes he went to war with humans before, but what can his army and power do on a large scale now? Well, we see what he can do, and it's horrifying. They show us why he wanted a composer and what he's able to do with it. I say they could have gone further as this is the only time in the story where the Didact directly kills any named character. His first meeting between him and Chief ends with Didact just throwing Chief instead of, I don't know, trying to kill him here and having Chief find a way to survive. This could have been a way to naturally get Chief into his new armor if they had the Didact destroy or damage his old one. In general, I don't like villains just letting people go for no reason. have the characters actually escape because of their skills. Outside of the start and end, there are very few direct confrontations between the Chief and the Didact. The final confrontation has the Didact firing a massive beam to Earth and is defeated via QuickTime event, and Cortana dies. Cortana's death is the main thing most fans probably remember about the story, since the Didact is a forgettable villain. He isn't charismatic or memorable, just evil. Also, the Didact doesn't even die here. He dies in a book, and is never seen in the games again. Cortana's death was a massive risk, and one I think they kind of regret now. She is one of the more recognizable characters of the series, and killing her off takes massive balls. Judging from the sequels, I don't think they had a strong idea of where to go from here. Looking at the story in a vacuum, the personal story is engaging with a heartbreaking ending. I think Halo 4 is the strongest story 343 has created since taking over the franchise, even with its faults. I do really hate how they use the books to tell stories that are necessary to understand the games from here on out though. That's all I have for the story, moving on. Does anyone remember Spartan Ops? In my opinion, there's a lot of potential in this mode. The implementation in 4 had a few flaws with its meh story, broken balance, and repetitive level structure, but I still enjoyed this mode. Spartan Ops is a mode I have wanted to come back since there is a lot of untapped potential. I could easily see this being a standalone title where it becomes a kind of roguelike approach where each drop is unique in terms of enemies, objectives, and levels. I think more about what this mode could have been since they didn't do much with it. It was a very fun addition that I hope at some point they revisit. Something I cannot understand is why, in the actual fuck, does this specific game in the Master Chief Collection have so many issues? Audio cutting out, levels not loading, and other bugs. I did not edit this in any way.
The composer would provide the Didact his solution and his revenge.
It's wild because in some playthroughs I don't get many bugs, and other times half the cutscenes have no audio. What the hell? These issues annoy me, but absolutely destroy the experience for someone playing this title for the first time as part of this collection. It's been over a decade, and 343 still hasn't gotten every game in the collection perfected. I know I've spent a lot of time talking negatively, but I do genuinely enjoy Halo 4. Combat is enjoyable, and the story has some heart to it. The Prometheans work well as a solid new threat, and have enough unique about them to differentiate them from what has come before. Obviously the Covenant are the GOATs, with them being fun to scrap with as always. It is a solid title that was close to being a great one. 343 showed they have the talent needed to make a great Halo title, but lack the necessary direction for it. Missed opportunities with enemy usage and level design let them down. Some changes like how zoom works shows they might not always know or understand why some mechanics were in place to begin with. To give them credit, continuing this series isn't an easy task. Making games in general isn't easy. But that is what you signed up for. They had a huge task ahead of them, and I believe they did the best they could. And even if I don't think it's great, it is pretty good. That will be all for this video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please send a like, share this video around, and I'll see you next time, where I'll be getting bouncy.